Sammy Davis Jr. was a legend, one of the greatest entertainers of all time. He sang, he danced, he acted, and he broke barriers in an industry that wasn't always welcoming. But behind the bright lights and standing ovations was a man who faced unimaginable struggles. He lived a life of luxury, but when he passed away, what remained of his fortune? What happened to his once glamorous home? And why did his final years take such a heartbreaking turn? In this video, we take you inside Sammy Davis Jr.'s abandoned house, uncover the truth about his net worth, and explore the tragic circumstances surrounding his death. Stay tuned for an emotional journey into the highs and lows of a true icon's life. How did Sammy Davis Jr. end up $15 million in debt? Sammy Davis Jr. was the ultimate entertainer, a singer, actor, comedian, and a key member of the legendary Rat Pack. For nearly 6 decades, he captivated audiences on stage and screen, headlined in Las Vegas, and surrounded himself with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. To the outside world, it looked like he had it all. But behind the fame and fortune, Davis was battling a financial crisis that would leave his estate in turmoil after his passing in 1990. Even before his death, Davis was desperate to climb out of debt. He signed on for a tour in hopes of revitalizing his career and regaining his financial footing. But his declining health made that impossible, and he never got the chance to turn things around. Which raises the question, how did one of the most successful entertainers of his time end up in such a dire situation? A big part of the answer lies in his generosity. Davis took pride in taking care of those around him, perhaps as a response to his own humble beginnings in Harlem. As he once put it, "I make a lot of money, and I spend a lot of money. I take care of my family, and they live well. I live high on the hog, as the saying goes, but then I own the hog." From the late 1940s or early 50s, he made sure his loved ones were provided for, buying his grandmother, Rosa B., a house in Los Angeles and a Chrysler, along with hiring a personal driver for her. She had played a crucial role in his upbringing, raising him when he wasn't traveling with his vaudevillian father, Sam Sr. While his generosity was admirable, it also contributed to his financial downfall, something even his daughter, Tracy Davis, acknowledged as both one of his greatest qualities and one of his biggest flaws. The IRS cracked down on Sammy Davis Jr.'s tax shelters in 1972. Like many high-earning entertainers, Sammy Davis Jr. tried to reduce his tax burden by investing in tax shelters. He put money into ventures like oil and gas drilling and even the DeLorean Company, hoping these investments would shield him from hefty IRS bills. Unfortunately, when the oil and gas deal failed, he was left owing a massive amount in back taxes, on top of what he already owed. By 1972, the IRS stopped recognizing Davis's tax shelters, leading to a reassessment of his finances. As a result, his tax debt ballooned, and by the time of his passing in 1990, he owed a staggering $15 million. Davis was painfully aware of his financial troubles. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, he met with IRS officials Charles Callahan and Bill Byron, negotiating payments between $50,000 and $100,000 to keep his home. To make these payments, he took an advance from Harrah's and even sold off some of his belongings. However, he never truly adjusted his lifestyle, continuing to spend lavishly and generously give money to those around him. With mounting financial pressure, Davis sought to revive his income by hitting the road. In April 1988, he announced a 12-city tour alongside 2 fellow entertainment legends, Liza Minnelli and Frank Sinatra. For Davis, it was not just a financial opportunity, but also an exciting collaboration with close friends. Reflecting on the tour, he said, "Liza has been a good friend for many years, and my admiration for her is limitless. Let me tell you, this will be a fall to remember." The tour was a huge success, prompting the trio to extend it internationally in the spring of 1989. They performed in cities like Dublin, Ireland, and London, England, where the reception was so strong that there was even talk of adding a third leg. Despite the tour's success, Davis's debts remained overwhelming, and his health was beginning to decline, making his financial recovery even more difficult. Davis's throat cancer forced him to abandon efforts to rebuild his career. Despite the overwhelming success of his U.S. and European tours, another round of performances was never meant to be. In August 1989, Davis was diagnosed with throat cancer. Given the option between surgery and radiation, he chose radiation in an effort to save his voice. His doctors warned that surgery would leave him unable to speak, making singing impossible. Though radiation came with its own challenges, fatigue, hair loss, and difficulty eating, Davis was determined to fight the disease while holding on to his identity as a performer. At first, the treatment seemed to be working. Davis spoke candidly about his health struggles, recalling, "If I touched my throat, my hand would come away stained with blood. I was losing weight. I couldn't eat. Everything tasted like mush." Still, he remained hopeful. He went into remission for a brief time, but his condition continued to worsen. By January 1990, he was back in the hospital, where doctors confirmed the cancer had returned. He began chemotherapy, but those closest to him saw how much the disease had taken its toll. A friend who visited him described the heartbreaking scene. "He looked like this little thing in bed, and he had tubes coming out of him. His mouth, his nose. He had fours in his hands. He was just filled with that stuff." Davis fought hard, but the battle was nearing its end. Davis remained optimistic until the end. By February 1990, despite his declining health, Sammy Davis Jr. remained hopeful. He reassured the public, saying, "I'll be back. As long as people keep praying for me, I'll make it." Even as speculation grew that his condition was worsening, his wife, Altavise, pushed back against the rumors. "He's not dying, just the opposite. He's beaten the throat cancer. In fact, he's talking. His voice has come back. It's raspy, but it's back." His daughter, Tracy Davis, had encouraged him to undergo surgery, but she knew it was never an option in his mind. He would never, under any circumstances, have surgery and risk losing his singing voice. Ironically, by that point, he couldn't speak anyway due to the tubes in his throat. In the end, avoiding surgery may have cost him his life, as it had a much higher success rate than the treatment he chose. On May 16, 1990, Sammy Davis Jr. passed away, leaving behind a legacy that would endure far beyond his final curtain call. Davis's employees looted the singer's house as his health deteriorated. Sammy Davis Jr. spent his final days at home, surrounded by his wife Altavise and his children. As the end drew near, his daughter Tracy recalled him gently squeezing her hand 3 times, a silent but powerful gesture of love and reassurance. But while his family remained by his side, others were not as loyal. As Davis lay dying, employees and opportunists ransacked his home, taking whatever valuables they could find. Author Matt Birkbeck recounted that Davis's longtime valet, Bernard Wilson, had warned Altavise, who was attending a funeral shortly before Davis's passing, that people were helping themselves to his clothing, memorabilia, and even his jewelry. When Altavise returned, Davis, frail but aware, shared a heartbreaking realization. "They took everything from us. Everything. There's nothing left here but my name. Remember, you'll always be Mrs. Sammy Davis Jr. Davis, always spent more than he made." Sammy Davis Jr.'s publicist, Jay Bernstein, once summed up the entertainer's financial habits. "Sammy always said he spent twice as much as he earned, and he always lived well. He fooled 'em, didn't he?" But in reality, Davis wasn't fooling anyone. Despite his fame and success, he accumulated massive debt throughout his life. Still, he lived extravagantly, securing a home in one of Los Angeles's most exclusive neighborhoods after making it big in Hollywood in the 1950s. However, buying a house in the affluent hills near Sunset Boulevard wasn't easy for a black entertainer in that era. Facing blatant racial discrimination, Davis was forced to purchase the home under someone else's name. Television producer George Schlatter, a close friend, took on the mortgage himself, later admitting, "I was making $200 a week, and I must tell you, it makes your sphincter jump when you sign something like that. I knew Sammy didn't have any money, but that's how he got the house." The house, which had once belonged to Judy Garland, boasted 5 bedrooms and luxurious decor, including oversized beds, extravagant rugs, and ornate lamps. Davis took pride in his home, once telling Esquire, "It meant a lot to me. Someday I'd like to arrange things so I can spend time there." Over the course of his career, Sammy Davis Jr. reportedly made around $50 million as a singer, dancer, and all-around entertainer. At his peak, he was raking in $185,000 a night, an incredible sum for the time. But just as quickly as the money came in, it went out. Davis had a taste for luxury and never hesitated to spend. He drove Rolls-Royces, lived in a lavish mansion, and made it clear he wasn't the type to delay gratification. As he once put it, "I'm not going to wait until I'm 70 years old and decide to go on vacation." But his extravagant lifestyle came at a cost. He was known to lose nearly $40,000 in a single night gambling. And on top of that, he developed an expensive cocaine habit that only worsened his financial troubles. Davis left everything to his widow and children. After Sammy Davis Jr. passed away, it was revealed that he had left his entire estate to his wife, Alta Vise, along with trusts for his children. But along with his assets came a mountain of debt. Since Alta Vise had signed Davis's tax returns, she was legally responsible for paying off the back taxes he owed. To help settle the debt, an auction was held in 1991 where many of Davis's prized possessions were sold. A pair of his tap shoes alone went for $11,000, while photos, home decor, and memorabilia brought in a total of about $440,000. Unfortunately, even after liquidating parts of his estate, the money raised wasn't nearly enough to cover what Davis owed. Davis's life insurance policies paid out nearly $6 million to his widow and children. While Alta Vise publicly expressed her struggles and financial hardships after Sammy Davis Jr.'s passing, his daughter, Tracy Davis, saw things differently. She pointed out that Alta Vise, along with Davis's 4 children, Mark, Jeff, Manny, and herself, had received payouts from nearly $6 million in life insurance policies he had set up before his death. Frustrated by the narrative that her father had left his widow in financial ruin, Tracy pushed back, saying, "My father made sure we were all taken care of financially, and I'm sick of all the complaining Alta Vise has been doing about the financial mess she says my father left her. There are problems with the estate, but they can be solved." After Davis passed, widow Alta Vise lived in the Poconos in general poverty. After Sammy Davis Jr.'s passing, Alta Vise found herself completely overwhelmed by the financial turmoil left behind. A friend described her as someone who had never managed money before, explaining, "She was a chorus girl who married an international celebrity. She never handled money. She was on a $300 a week allowance. She's freaked out." With mounting debts and no clear direction, Alta Vise sold her Los Angeles home and moved east with her 13-year-old son Manny, whom she and Davis had adopted in 1989. She initially stayed with her parents in New York City, but family friend Calvin Douglas soon took her in at his home in Pennsylvania. Struggling emotionally and financially, she spent her days drinking and drifting in a fog of despair. Douglas recalled how she relied on his car to get around, and how he would occasionally slip her $5 or $10 to help her out. At one point, she even asked Bill Cosby for financial help, but he reportedly refused, unwilling to support what he saw as her destructive habits. It was during her time in Pennsylvania that Alta Vise crossed paths with attorney Albert "Sonny" Murray Jr., a meeting that would soon change the course of her life. Albert Sonny Murray Jr. essentially rescued Davis's estate. Albert Sonny Murray Jr. had been visiting the Poconos for years with his family, but when he saw Altovise in a dire state, intoxicated and barely getting by, he knew he had to step in. Concerned, he asked Calvin Douglas about her situation, and Douglas explained that Altovise's supposed financial advisor, Al Carter, had been handling her money after Sammy's passing. According to Douglas, Carter had reassured her that everything would be fine if she just left things in his hands. At the same time, Altovise was locked in a financial battle with her late husband's lawyer, John Climaco, and his longtime manager, Shirley Rhodes. She believed they had manipulated Sammy, mismanaging his money and giving him poor financial advice. Climaco and Rhodes denied the claims, insisting that Davis had always been aware of his financial affairs and had approved all transactions. Climaco also argued that efforts to negotiate with the IRS had stalled because Altovise refused to cooperate. By the time Murray stepped in, the Davis estate was in complete disarray. Wanting to get to the bottom of how Davis had ended up so deeply in debt with the IRS, Murray began untangling the family's finances. Using his legal expertise, he helped broker a deal with the IRS, ultimately settling the staggering tax debt, which had ballooned to over $7 million. Lawsuits about who owned the rights to Davis's life lasted for decades after his passing. Even after Sammy Davis Jr. and his widow, Altovise, were gone, questions over who owned the rights to his intellectual property, IP, continued. When Davis passed in 1990, he left his IP to Altovise, and she reportedly created a company called Sammy Davis Jr. Enterprises, Inc. to manage and market his likeness and work. However, when she partnered with Barrett LaRota and Anthony Francis to form the corporation, she allegedly signed over her husband's IP to them. In 2008, she filed a lawsuit against LaRota and Francis, accusing them of defrauding her. After Altovise's passing in 2009, she left everything to her son, Manny, in a will created using LegalZoom. A California court upheld the document as legally binding in 2010. The legal battles didn't end there. In 2012, movie producer Rick Appling claimed he had purchased the rights to Davis's life story from Tracy Davis in 2011. Meanwhile, Byron Allen and Entertainment Studios also insisted that Tracy had sold them the rights to her father's legacy. Despite the ongoing disputes, as of June 2018, Paramount Pictures has moved forward with a biopic about Davis, with the full support of all his heirs, Sammy Davis Jr.'s Los Angeles home. Back in the 1950s, Sammy Davis Jr. turned Evanview Drive into a hotspot, hosting Rat Pack members and other Hollywood elites at his Los Angeles estate. Now, a home built on the same property where the Candyman once lived has hit the market. The 3-bedroom, 4-bathroom house in the Hollywood Hills has been completely remodeled and is listed for nearly $8 million. For those not looking to buy, it's also available as a fully furnished rental for $49,000 a month. The Real Deal first reported the listing. Jason Oppenheim, founder of the Oppenheim Group, oversaw the renovations himself. He took the existing 1987-built home down to the studs, expanded the space, and transformed it into a modern luxury residence. While he knew Davis had owned the neighboring house, which sold for $3.8 million in 2013, he later discovered through old permits that the entertainer had once owned both plots. There are photos of the Rat Pack hanging out at the previous house, Oppenheim said, and James Dean lived in a guest house across the street. It was quite a cool area. Oppenheim isn't certain how long Davis lived there, but the permits he reviewed date back to the 1950s. While the pool house from Davis's era still stands, the current 5,044-square-foot home is entirely new. "I was just going to do a mid-range remodel," Oppenheim admitted, "but I got carried away." Though he previously renovated his own home, this is Oppenheim's first major real estate development, and by far his most ambitious. Once I blew through my budget, I decided to throw it out and do everything in the most awesome way possible, he said. Drawing from his experience selling luxury homes, Oppenheim spared no expense, incorporating high-end design elements throughout. The project, which took a year and a half to complete, ultimately cost several $1,000,000. He originally purchased the property in 2016 for $2.7 million. One of the standout features is the floating steps leading to a fire pit in the pool, where residents can relax by the fire while surrounded by water and built-in waterfalls. The outdoor space also includes day beds, an outdoor kitchenette, a barbecue, and a TV viewing area, perfect for LA living. Inside, the home boasts 13-foot ceilings, exposed wood beams, custom woodwork, and cabinetry. Ambient LED lighting and a gas fireplace add to the modern aesthetic, while floor-to-ceiling windows flood the space with natural light. The kitchen is equipped with Miele appliances, a breakfast bar, and a patio with city views and another fire pit. There are 2 master suites, both featuring suede-lined walk-in closets and leather-clad bathrooms. A floating steel staircase is anchored into the concrete wall, with sliding doors opening to the suites. Additional amenities include a 3rd bedroom, an office, a media room with a wet bar, a wine cellar, and even sauna and massage areas. With its blend of history and high-end design, the estate offers a fresh take on the legacy of one of Hollywood's most iconic entertainers. Hollywood Hills Home. A historic Hollywood Hills home once owned by Judy Garland and her second husband, director Vincente Minnelli, is on the market for $6.129 million. The Art Deco-style estate was home to Garland, Minnelli, and their daughter, Liza Minnelli, during the mid-1940s, according to the Los Angeles Times. But the Garland family wasn't the only group of stars to call this place home. Comedian Wally Cox later owned the property before selling it to Rat Pack legend Sammy Davis Jr. The rock group The Band also lived and recorded music there, adding to its rich entertainment history. Designed and built in 1941 by renowned architect John Elgin Wolfe, the property showcases his signature Hollywood Regency style, with unique touches from its famous former owners. Behind the library, a hidden door leads to what was originally the master bedroom, now known as the Judy Garland Suite. It still features a walk-in closet and a dressing room with Garland's original mirrors. Davis also left his mark on the estate, transforming the outdoor space. According to the Los Angeles Times, he added a swimming pool, a 1,100-square-foot pool house with 2 bathrooms, and professionally landscaped gardens, including a fruit orchard. More recently, a modern fire pit was installed, creating the perfect spot for outdoor entertaining. Perched just above the Sunset Strip, the 3-story home features 5 bedrooms, 7.5 bathrooms, a home office, a screening room, and a remodeled kitchen. Floor-to-ceiling windows and spacious balconies provide stunning panoramic views of Los Angeles, making this property a true Hollywood gem. The tragic real-life story of Sammy Davis. Sammy Davis Jr. is rightfully remembered as one of the greatest entertainers of the 20th century. His extraordinary talent as a singer, actor, and dancer first emerged when he was just 3 years old. From his stage debut in 1928 to his passing in 1990, Davis not only became a virtuoso performer, but also broke barriers for black entertainers, pushing representation in show business to new heights. When he passed away, people described him as a song and dance man extraordinaire, noting the outpouring of grief from some of the biggest names in entertainment. But Davis's journey to stardom was far from easy. His life was marked by hardship, discrimination, and personal struggles that required immense resilience to overcome. "My talent was the weapon, the power, the way for me to fight," Davis wrote in Sammy, an autobiography. "It was the one way I might hope to affect a man's thinking. Davis's childhood was filled with music and performance. Though his parents divorced when he was just 3, he was raised in show business, traveling with his father, Sammy Davis Sr., a successful performer, and his uncle, Will Maston. Together, they formed the Will Maston Trio, where Davis Jr. honed his skills under the guidance of tap dancer Howard M. Colbert Jr., and even met legends like Bill Bojangles Robinson, according to Sammy Davis Jr. info. Surrounded by strong black mentors, Davis grew up somewhat insulated from the harsh realities of racism in America. That changed when he was drafted into the Army at 18. According to PBS, he was assigned to the Army's 1st Integrated Infantry Unit, where his small stature made him an easy target for abuse. He endured brutal racially motivated attacks from white soldiers, who beat him, painted his skin, and even poured urine in his beer. The relentless discrimination he faced in the military was a harsh awakening. But rather than letting it break him, Davis used it as fuel. The indignities he suffered only strengthened his determination to succeed. After leaving the Army, Sammy Davis Jr.'s career took off. He reunited with the Will Maston Trio in 1945 before eventually going solo, establishing himself as one of the most dynamic entertainers of his time. With his incredible talent in singing, dancing, and acting, he earned the reputation of being the greatest entertainer in the world. But despite his success, Davis still faced the harsh realities of racism, even at the height of his fame. As Vanity Fair reported, Jim Crow-era segregation laws were still in effect, meaning that while he performed in top nightclubs, he often had to enter through the back door. He was also forced to keep his distance from white admirers or risk violent repercussions. One of the most dangerous examples of this came in 1957, when Davis began an affair with Hollywood star Kim Novak, who had just skyrocketed to fame with her role in Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. Their relationship didn't sit well with Columbia Pictures chief Harry Cohn, who controlled Novak's career and disapproved of the interracial romance. Cohn went as far as hiring mobsters to threaten Davis, making it clear that there would be severe consequences if he didn't end the relationship. Fearing for his safety, Davis hastily married Lorraine White, a black dancer, in 1958, hoping that a public marriage would diffuse the situation. However, the union was short-lived and unhappy, a tragic car accident. In November 1954, Sammy Davis Jr. suffered a life-altering injury that would test his resilience like never before. At the time, everything seemed to be going his way. His career with the Will Maston Trio was thriving, and they had just landed a $7,500 per week residency at a prestigious Los Angeles casino. To celebrate, his fellow performers had even